Good morning, traders, and a very happy Thursday out there to everyone. Hope that y'all had a nice evening there last night. And as we can see, it should be a rather interesting day for these markets lining up in front of us here. Just before we go diving into our charts here this morning, we do have a couple items on the board, just to be aware of in the early morning session there. We'll have a final GDP out for the US, as well as our unemployment claims, both of which will be good to note, both out at 8:30. And then we just have, oh, sorry, scrolls. Yes, final GDP and unemployment claims there at 8:30, and then conference board leading index there at 10 o'clock. So a couple of things to make note of there. But with that said, those are pretty much the main items on the board here. And then we'll come over here and jump into our daily charts here on the S&Ps. Yesterday, of course, we picked up our selling pressure at the tail end of the day, so we had traded above the previous day's high early on in the day and then proceeded to get some selling pressure, took out the previous day's low and then some. We put in a low on the day of 47.43 and a quarter. In the overnight session, we only traded down to 47.51, so holding briefly above the previous day's low for now. And on the same token, we did get our first close beneath the 5 SMA there, so we'll have that flagged as the 5 SMA buy. Only thing to take into account is that we did have nice selling pressure there yesterday, so we do still want to be on guard there, keeping the previous day's low on the sheet just in case we do end up ultimately forming some continuation, which we'll look at in just a moment. But outside of that, 5 SMA here on the daily charts comes in at 47.81 there, basis to ES, so we'll have that going for us. And then over here on our intraday data, this is going to be one that'll show up nicely, of course, from our single print area yesterday. So on the market profile display, we'll have our lower developed area, and as we could see overnight, we are indeed, kind of rotating up, and we'll see if we're ultimately going to be forming a continuation pattern. If you were to jump out to the hourly charts, you would see that we are just forming movement towards the hourly moving average. And up above, we have a bit of a window, right, just from all the selling pressure that we had. So 78 was our overnight high, and then on the same token, we have 47.89, which might ultimately serve as a little resistance or pausing point if we even get up there in the first place. So for now we have impulse down, and all we're doing is getting a reaction up there towards the moving average. So we'll want to note, we don't have any higher low as of yet, so we might try and do partial retesting down, in which case previous day's low will be key, and then the other side of the coin would be our resistance zone that looms a little bit further up above there. So a couple things to take into account there with our ES, as far as the daily as well as the intraday data. 78 being the overnight high. 5 SMA comes in just a little bit above that at 81 and change. And just trading as an inside range bar. So far, though, this is just in the early morning session. All we're doing is digesting some of our nice heavier selling pressure that we had from yesterday's activity there. So that's where we are in the ES. I know we kicked it off a little ahead of time there just because we have the 8:30 figure, so I want to cover our bases here. In the case of the DAX, also had the outside down bar yesterday. It's not really setting you know too much of a tone. 16,795 was our previous day's low, so I gave that a bit of a test. But as we'll see here on the hourly charts, just showing up as a slightly higher low for now. So we'll keep watch on this DAX future as well. We'll put a yellow line there on the previous day's low just in case we were to come back and start to do work on the other side of it. But for now, maintaining and holding themselves. Could probably drop this down to like a 30-minute display. So overnight session came down, tested, but didn't quite take out that previous day's low for now there in the case of our DAX future. And then moving on along, we have our euro currency here. Next in the queue, AC we had a couple groups here that put in these inside range bars. So here with the euro currency, it's up a notch. We had our inside range days, so a little bit of balancing act here. We know that we have originally fell shy on the full test up on the EC. So we've been going through this process here, building ourselves out a little bit of a range here, but still maintaining for the most part. As far as our two nice impulse bars that we had to the upside, doing a fairly good job of digesting all of that in a constructive manner. So for now here in the EC, we do have some areas here on the intraday charts, the hourly data. We have two little data points up in this vicinity here, 1.10280 in the case of the EC. So that might provide them, a little hurdle as far as getting back above that. And then on the same token, we have pretty well defined 1.097 just on the other side of 1.1 even there in the case of the EC. So some nice regions for them as well to kind of monitor. You can see our two highs that are clustered back to back. So that's how it shows up at the 1.10280 mark there. So a little bit of a boost overnight, but see we're running into these previous high tests there, so that's going to be a bit of a hurdle there for that of our euro currency to keep in mind there. And then next in line we have the gold still keeping itself nice and contained, kind of coiling a bit on the daily bars, a little range contraction, if you would, the nature in which we've been putting in a couple inside range bars, but also the range of them has been contracted there slightly. So we've been kind of rotating quite a bit here, around this 2042, 2045 area. A little bit above previous swing highs though, 2039. I'd say we've been doing an okay job of holding above that, but a lot of work here in this gold that we've been trading on both sides of here. So the daily chart just shows up as a lot of overlap here inside range bar yesterday. So nothing sticking out to us too much there on the daily display. However, coming over to our intraday data, it's just going to show up with a little more detail. The nature in which we had our good sharp run up. So we came down, failure test, filled in some of the blanks, but ultimately, bigger picture here, we are filling out some zones here, holding above 2029 for one, right? That's our low developed caution area. We have high tests as well, 2062.9, which we've been falling a little shy on. So it's a broader zone here in the gold, and not sure we'll necessarily be breaching either side of this here today, but I'm really looking at 2063 up above and 2029 down below. So we're kind of smack in the middle between these two broader points for now in the case of the GC there, the gold. So we'll keep watch on it though, see if it does start to open up any further, but that's kind of what we're coming in with for now there on the GC. And then we have the crude. The crude, we'll start here with the daily charts for one. So been making good progress as we know here. So what we had was the tail, right, from 2 days ago, our little inside range bar where we had been working on eating the tail. So we proceeded to take that out yesterday, right, 74.61, which was fine. Left the tail, so we didn't close up there, and now we're proceeding. Well, this is already happening overnight, but we are testing on the other side of previous day's low, but you also have the 2-day low in this vicinity as well for this crude here. 72.14 was the low from that would have been Tuesday's trading there in the crude. So where we are on the daily is a little bit beneath the 5 SMA. 2-day low comes in a little further down. And then on the intraday charts, this was something that we were left with on the clue, or like on the settlement there, was just a feeling of a little hint of loss of momentum that we had starting to pan out yesterday, right? The higher high in the price and the lower high in the oscillator. So this was kind of panning out in the midst of the day yesterday. So we came down, reverted to the 120-minute moving average, but then proceeded to put in a bit of a lower high. So we've come down, and if we put this on like a 30-minute data, we'll see that we're filling in some of the blanks here from our markup phase there off the 8 a.m. reading 2 days ago. So another one where it'll show up nice and clean on the market profile visual. But back out here to the hourlies and the 120-minute data. 72.53 will be a nice zone there as well to kind of keep an eye on there with the crude. We have had previous cycle highs in that area. A nice little... Oh no, I lost my little zone there. But we've had previous clusters in this area, and we did have a little reaction or pull back to that zone as well. So as we come down to retest in here, This zone should serve as a good point of interest. If we start to get acceptance on the other side of it, then that 72.14 might just be coming into sight. But one step at a time there with the crude, we'll kind of follow along, see what type of action it gets for the morning session there. And then lastly here we have the bonds here before our little morning data point here. Bonds holding their own, considering, right? Blow this one up a little bit bigger on the dailies. So we know bonds took their time, and it was very interesting because whilst we were getting selling pressure in the ES at the end of the day, the bonds were showcasing some strength. So we did make some movement and closed outside of the 3-bar balance mode. So we put in a high with the bonds of 124.24. So it has not tested that overnight yet. That's 124.21 there for our overnight high. But over here on the 30-minute data, or the intraday charts, I have to say on balance, we're looking fairly constructive on the bonds. As far as getting all the way up for the high test from yesterday, we'll just see about that there. There'd be nothing wrong with them coming up and falling a little shy and putting in a lower high. So along the way here, we remember this from yesterday, 124.09. It took quite some time to get that out of the way. It was at the very end of the day, so still like watching. 124.09 on the 30 years. I think that's a valid point of interest. And then as far as full test up goes, we'll see about that there. That comes in at 124.24. So I think in the early morning would be latching on to or watching a little bit more closely on the 124.09 down below there. See if that offers any type of footing there for those bonds. And then lastly here, just to bring this back into sight for those keeping a little bit of a closer watch on the yield, we'll be opening here 4% basically on the nose there for our little 8 a.m. reading. So that's a pretty a substantial zone, or a bit of a round figure there, if you would, in the case of the 30-year. So opening right around 4% there. And with that said, we have our morning data point that'll be due out here in just a few moments. Unemployment claims, final GDP. So I'll allow plenty of time and let you get your charts adjusted, get things settled in, and see what we have lining up here for this nice day in front of us.